to the sixth tutorial of the box modeling series. This is the second part of the modeling. In our previous tutorial, we developed a simple box, converted it to an editable poly, and created some edges around the outside of it so that we can move the model around to form a basic shape based on our blueprints. Now in this tutorial, I'll be going over how to use the extrude tool as well as the align vertices using the align axis options. So now to start off, let's go by selecting the model itself and going into the polygon selection. Now in the polygon selection, we'll just scroll down until you see an extrude button. Now what an extrude does is pretty much self-explanatory. If I select the extrude button, it will push out whatever selection I have out or inwards, and that's pretty much it. There are three different options you can use for the extrude. There is by local, by group, and by polygon. But I'll go through that a little bit later. I'll just show you what other pretty cool things the extrude can do. So if I just deselect that and I'll do it again, it'll create another extrusion out from that selection. So if I wanted to select this one, this polygon here, as you can see, and I'll move up. Moving up will extrude outwards. Moving down will extrude inwards. So and just keep going, and however you want it. If I move up, the polygon's still moving along its local axis, which means it's moving along in a straight line as it can. So if I rotated it and then tried to extrude it again, it's going to extrude towards the inside of the model this time. So as you can see, so it's pretty cool ways you can do some crazy stuff with the extrude tool. So let me just undo these. Undo, Control Z, Control Z, Control Z, all the way to the base again. And I'll just explain a little bit on what the local extrusion, the group extrusion, and the bipolygon extrusion will do. So if I deselect that extrude tool, I'll highlight all of these polygons again, just all the way up to the second row. So pretty much the front blocks of what we want to start with. So if we go over to the extrude settings, which is that little box right next to the extrude button, it should be like a grey and black box. If we just click on that, and it'll ask us what type of extrusions do we want. So first of all, let me just go through group. Now, group is it's trying to extrude along one axis with all the polygons. So if I move it out, it's going to try and extrude along one single axis all the way down. It's not going to explode out, it's just going straight across. So that's one way of doing an extrusion. Another way is using local normals, which is each face. So this will explode the selection you have. So if I click local normal, as you can see, it's trying to push out all of those polygons that I have selected. So if I want to push in, push out, push in, push out, that's what we can do as well. And the last one, we can extrude by, whoops, just undo that. We can extrude by polygon. Now what by polygon does is extrude obviously by each polygon for their own surface. So if I select by polygon, as you can see, they're trying to extrude along their own axes. So yeah, they're pretty much the three extrusions that we can use. But for now, I'll just use the by local extrusion. So if we just get out of that extrude, and we can just start from fresh. So first what I want to do, I want to make the selection that we have smaller. So I want to shrink it down. So let's extrude using the settings and reset this this number to 0 again. So right-clicking it, right-clicking the little arrows, reset it back to 0. And make sure you have group local, make sure you have by local or local normal selected. You can do that by just clicking the top little box there and choosing which one you want. So let's go local normal. Now we want to extrude inwards. Instead of out, we'll go in. So let's just extrude in all the way till we think that's enough there. So as you can see, it's starting to distort the polygons. This is because it's still thinking about their local normals. So if I go all the way in, it's going to do some pretty funky stuff, which we do not want. Now just go about to where just before they start to distort a little bit. So that's probably about right. So let's just tick that for now. Okay, another thing with the extrude tool is it will create polygons along those lines. So if I hide the symmetry modifier for a second, clicking on the little light bulb, you can see that it's created some extra polygons along this side here. This is because it's thinking that it wants you to create a box. Now, if you pull a box up from the bottom all the way to the top, it's going to try and create some sides for your convenience. But we don't want that in this case because that's just added polygons that we do not want. Now, if you just select these polygons just by holding Control, select, all the way down, rotate around, select, all the way to the end, and then just delete. And that will fix that problem up. So we can turn symmetry back on, and there we have it. Okay, so now that we've kind of got the form of the front done, we just want to fix these distortions up here. As you can see, it's kind of slanted and it's trying to invert itself. So let's start off with the side view. So let's go to the left view for a second, and we'll just Alt X to make it invisible, and we will just align these up to their correct axes. So first of all, scroll down a bit further. Make sure you have vertex selected. Scroll down all the way until you can see a Make Planar button. Next to that, we'll have a X, Y, and Z. Now what these do is it will align all the selected vertices you have along that axis. So if I wanted to, I don't know, select these vertices here, all along here, and let's align them to the Z axis. It's going to align them at the Z axis. So as you can see, I went to perspective, and it's tried to align them along the world axis of that. So which is good, but we don't want it to align in that way. So let's undo that, and I'll go back to the left view. So that's pretty much the Make Planar or Align Axes tool. So what we want to do, we want to straighten this top part up here. So if you select the vertices here, and select all the vertices that make up that top part here, even the ones that are just inside here, just make sure they're all selected, and we will go Make Planar Y. Let's not try Y, let's go X. No, not X either. Let's try Z. There we go, Z. Okay, so to check this, press P, go around, and as you can see, it's aligned them pretty well. So now it's just got this one as well. We'll just move this down a bit. That way we can align that one up to the next row as well. So if I go back to L, and we'll select the next row underneath that. So make sure you have all the vertices that you need to align selected, and go Align Z axes. And we'll just move that down a bit there. Okay. And same deal with all the rows down below as well. So align, and just highlight these ones in here. Align. As you can see, they just jumped, which is good. And select the last ones and align. Okay, so now that we've got pretty much a good side view, it's still distorting in the front here. So if we select all of the front row, and go Align Y, as you can see, they've all aligned to the Y axes. So if I press P for perspective, just to check it, they've all aligned there. So all that we have left to do is to align these vertices along the X axis this time. So if we press F for front, we zoom in, and we'll just highlight the innermost vertices here, and we'll just go Align X. So we'll start with the top, align these three here. So from the center, go across, and the cluster of vertices here, just select them all and align X. Align X. And follow the edges down to these vertices, these clusters here, and align X. And so on and so forth. Make sure you don't select the vertices that are behind. If I press P, I know it is pretty difficult to understand the way wireframes work. It can get a bit confusing at most, trying to find out what vertices are in front, what are behind, and whatnot. So if it does help, just go Alt X, or you can just simply select the vertices by themselves in perspective view and just align X there. So I might even do that for this exercise for here, just to simplify things a bit more. So if I just Alt X and select this vertice, holding Control, select second vertice and third vertice outwards, and then align X. So that way it's starting to align them pretty well. And we'll just do the same, align X. Okay, so that's pretty much done there. We can even go a bit further and select all of these vertices here. All of these vertices. And we can align them to the X. So that way all of those vertices there will align. Oops, I'll just highlight these ones as well. And align X. So that way all of these are going to make a straight line all the way through the X axis. Okay, so same deal with underneath as well. So if you highlight all the three vertices that we created before, and these vertices here, I'll just drag out to select all three. So you should have 6 vertices selected underneath that these blocks here, and just go. I think we should try the Z axis. Yes, the Z axis, because we're not aligning along the upwards, or sorry, vertically now. We're aligning horizontally. So just keep that in mind. If you're going through and like selecting vertices and aligning them up, just to keep in mind, the vertical ones would be along the X, and the horizontal ones will be along the Z. Also depends on what view you are. So sometimes it can be trial and error, so just be aware of that. Once we've done that, we can then select all these edges that go from the top of this front part here all the way down to the bottom, all the way down just before it hits that last corner part there. So we can do this either two ways. We can select them manually, or we can select one edge, scroll up to where the selection is, and press ring. Now what ring would do is it will select all the edges that are adjacent to it. So loop will select all the edges that are in loop with them. So if I go loop, it's going to select them all the way through. If I undo that and I select ring, it's going to select all the edges that are right next to each other. So if I go ring, as you can see, it's just selected all of them then. So we don't want all of them selected. We only want the ones that we're going to modify. So if I deselect the top ones, so if I just go to the front view, and if I hold Alt to deselect, I'll just go drag, drop, and I'll deselect the ones that I don't want. So that would just be all the top ones there. And same for these ones here as well. So deselect, deselect, and I'll deselect this one here as well. So deselect that, scroll around, deselect this one, still holding Alt to deselect. So remember, Alt is to deselect, Control is to add more selections. So Alt, deselect, deselect. Cool. And I'll deselect that corner one as well. So now that we've got all these ones selected here, we can then add an extra loop for these ones. So connect, and 1, 0, and set that to 0, and commit. And now that it's created a loop all the way down to this end part here. Now, when you're creating loops, remember to keep the poly count either in squares or quads, which they're known of, or triangles, which are these, which are pretty much triangles. Connect. Triangles. There we go. Okay. So yeah, make sure you keep them in quads or tris. Never have any faces that have 5-sided polygons. So for example, this one here, this polygon here, if I hide symmetry, it's a 5-sided polygon. So it's got 1 corner, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is not good. We want to keep them to squares and triangles. So what we can do, we can just select one of the vertices that makes up the 5-sided polygon, holding Control, select an adjacent vertice along that polygon, and simply scroll down and press the connect button. So now, instead of having a 5-sided polygon, we've got 1 3-sided and 1 square, or 1 quad So always remember to keep your models in quads or triangles. So same for this one as well. If I just move that down, I hold control. As you can see, it's got a 5-side as well. Hold control. Select both vertices that make up that polygon. Scroll down and connect from there. So now that we've closed that 5-sided polygon up, we can now remove these polygons from here. So okay, now that we've got our new loop created, we can then delete these polygons here. So reason why we're deleting them, let me just turn on symmetry again. Reason why we're deleting them is to make a little slot that the bottom arrow goes into. So if we select the inner ones, so the most inside, so if you want to turn off symmetry to help you out, the most inside ones, so I'm holding control, select, select, and select, so you've got pretty much 4 selected. Keep the middle one, just so you've got a bar to go across, and simply delete. So now that we've deleted them from there, and do the same for the 3 bottom polygons as well. So delete, delete, select, select, I should say, and delete. So now that we've got a hole in our mesh, so let me just turn on symmetry again. See that we've got a hole in our mesh. I'll right click, object properties, and I'll go backface cull, just so to emphasize the hole. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, we've got a hole in our mesh, so we can't really have this. We need to close it off somehow. So a way we can do this is to create new polygons from an edge. Now the way we can do this is to select an edge tool, select one of the edges that we want to create our new polygon from, and same way back in our other tutorials when we were creating our reference images, remember how I got you to hold shift when we had our polygon selection, hold shift to create a new one? Well, I'll just undo that. Well, for this, it pretty much acts as the same. However, instead of creating a new edge, it's going to create a new polygon. So watch what happens when I hold shift in edge mode and I drag along the y-axis. See how it's creating new polygons? This is fantastic. This is what we want. So we want to drag these polygons all the way to here. So just to try and close off this gap here. So now that we've created our new polygons, we can keep that edge selected. So I'll select that edge again just to show you. Holding control. So we want this edge to connect to this edge here. There are a few ways we can do this, but the way I'm going to show you now is a bridge technique. Now, what the bridge does is pretty much connects one side of a polygon to another side of the polygon. It's pretty much what a bridge is. It's connecting one side of a river to the other. So if I scroll down in edge mode still, I select both this edge here and the top edge here, so the one that we want to connect to, scroll down, and I'll just select bridge, and it will create a new polygon to bridge those 2 gaps together. Okay, so now that we've pretty much created a tiny hole in our mesh, we can simply create new polygons to fix this hole up. So if I select the polygon tool, because we want to create more polygons to cap this together, I'll scroll down and I'll simply create new polygons. So if you scroll down until you see a create button, click on it, and it'll come up with a strange little circle. So what it's asking is for you to choose the vertices it wishes to create the polygon from. So if I mouse over a vertice, my little mouse will change to this little plus emblem. So watch what happens if I select the ones here. See how it changes to a little plus emblem? That means it's found a vertice it wants to use to create this polygon. So if I click on this now, it'll drag out a little marching ant. So it's wanting to find out what other vertices we want to use to create this polygon. So if we go all the way around this hole in our mesh, we'll end up creating a new polygon to close this gap here. So if I keep going around, making sure that it goes to a little cross. Otherwise, if I just click outside and then click back, it's going to create something very strange, and it'll just create a new vertex out in space. So remember to I'll just delete that. Remember to select, or wait until your mouse changes to a little plus sign for you to select that vertex. So I'll go back to the create tool, select each vertex that we want to create, create, click all the way back to the starting one again, just to close it off, and it has created our new polygon for us. So obviously this polygon is also a 6-sided polygon, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6-sided, which is not good as well. But we can fix this by simply connecting. Let's connect. We'll just connect these ones together here. This one and this one. Scroll down. Connect. So that way, yeah, it's not really a good connection. You try and keep them as square as you can. Otherwise, the polygon will try and overlap itself. So to fix this, I can simply just weld this vertex to this vertex here. So what weld does is it will try and weld two vertices together and find a happy medium between them. So I'll show you what weld does, and I'll show you what target weld does. I normally use target weld just for a more precise welding, but I can also use the weld threshold as well. But for now, I'll just use target weld, and I'll click on the vertex I want to move. So I want to get rid of this vertex, or I want to weld it to this corner vertex here. So because I just don't need this edge anymore, so I'll just move it up to there. There we go. And same deal with this vertex here. I don't really need this empty T intersection, or I don't want T intersections here. So let's target weld this vertex to the back one as well. So that way we've collapsed our polygons to squares, to quads. So that one's a quad, and this one's a quad as well. When I say quad, I mean just 4-sided polygon. So, and this one's a triangle here. So that's fine. That's pretty good. So if I untick target weld, that's pretty much it. What we need. So if I just scroll down, and I'll do the same what we did up here before, down here as well. So if I just hold Shift in edge mode, Y-axis, move it along, and we'll move it just to there. And I could also holding Shift again and clicking on the Z, and I can also move it down. And this way I can show you how the weld tool works. So if I say I wanted this edge, the edge that we just created, this one here, to weld to this edge here. So instead of bridging them together, I can simply weld the corners to each other. So I want this corner, so this corner, this top one here, to be welded to this bottom one here. So I want to connect them together. So in vertex selection, I'll scroll down, and I can simply highlight both of these vertices together, go into the weld settings, and bump up my threshold so they both weld together. Okay, so what the threshold is pretty much how far away you want to weld your vertices together. So the lower the threshold, the smaller the area it will find any vertices to weld. The higher the threshold, it will find more and more vertices to weld. So that's pretty much the weld tool there. I can also target weld. Target weld, clicking on the vertex I want to weld to, or want to weld from, and click on the vertex I want to weld to, and it will weld them together. Untick that, and it's made our new polygons again. As well, I can also show you another technique on capping, or creating a polygon using the cap tool. So if I, in border selection, so you can't select edges in border unless they are opened edges. So like this one here, I can't select these ones up here because they're all connected to a polygon, but these ones here are open. So I can select the border, make sure the border's been selected, scroll down, and I can just simply cap that together. So I'll create a flat polygon for us to use, as you can see. And same thing. Looks like this is a 5-sided polygon, so I'll just connect. Select these two polygons here. Select these two vertices here. Scroll down and connect them together. So that way we've got a quad and a triangle. Okay. So now that's done, we can move on to extruding the top out, creating a handle, and fixing up this center area here. So that can be in our next tutorial. Okay.